Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. I'm looking forward to sharing another amazing industry expert with you today. And today I am really excited because I get to have someone that I have known for, at least 15 years. And I have really seen her business pivot and really move with what's happening. And I think that she talks, teaches, walks the walk of something that I think is very, very important in business today. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So Michele Mere is a decisive, driven, and committed entrepreneur who helps successful business owners create passive income streams so that they can start enjoying the benefits of entrepreneurship. Michele's business expertise has been highlighted during her speech at Harvard and on NBC, CBS, Fox, Entrepreneur, and Forbes.com. She is a Stevie Award-winning business consultant, best-selling author, and the founder of Decisive Minds. Michele, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh, Patty, I am so excited. This is going to be fun.
I think so too. So as I said to my audience, I have known you for 15 years and we have shared stages, done mastermind things together. We have had weekly calls. I've been to, can't even count how many of your events. So I have really, really seen your business pivot. And so I think that's really exciting. But you and I both know that we didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, this was what I was absolutely meant to do. There's always a story and a journey. And while I know your journey and story, I think it is one of the best I've ever heard, actually, of how you really got to where you are. And like literally your story is so inspiring and empowering too. So will you share your story first?
Sure, absolutely. Let's see. Let's start with birth now. Actually, I'm going to start really young because I'm third generation entrepreneur. So I tell people I was born into a family that had kids to guarantee they had employees. You know, when I was born, we had a grocery store, a mobile home park. My dad started a trucking company when I was 7. We had a wrecker service, an RV park. If we thought we could make a dime, we did it. So literally, I learned how to crawl in the grocery store. I learned how to count in the grocery store. I was working and negotiating my first wage at like 6. My dad used to pay me in toys. This is hilarious, I think. They would pay me to work in the grocery store and they would pay me in toys. And one day I helped this old lady with her groceries and she gave me $1. I was about 6 or 7 years old. And I went to my dad and said, listen, we need to talk. Because I'm thinking, this money thing's better than toys. So yes, I've been at this for a while and spent my life just alongside my dad and my grandfather, who were the most amazing entrepreneurs, the whole best family anybody could have there. Just kind of learning the ways of how do you build a business? How do you treat people, or your employees, your customers? You know, what does that look like? Sometimes it was rough. You know, we go through economy swings, we do all kind of stuff, and we survived a lot of those pieces. I remember the day that the bank called and said, oh, Michele, are you and your dad in the office? And I was, the bank doesn't call that often. And the banker showed up and he said, listen, it's not me, but the bank thinks y'all don't have a viable business anymore and we need our $1.5 million back. And, to sit there and hear those words and watch my dad go into action to save our businesses at a time where the economy had tanked. And, we never did lose that business. We paid back all that money. And in 2007, we actually sold both our trucking company and our grocery store that year. And my entire family retired. And so, you know, we went from 1997, where they were going to force us to close and file bankruptcy, to 2007, where we sold it and went out on top. And so you see a lot in those days. And so from there, Patty, I didn't realize how much the business, how much of being an entrepreneur was tied into my life. Before I knew it, I kind of found myself on the couch every day. You know, I had all these big plans. I was going to travel. I was going to do all kinds of stuff. And I forgot that my husband still had a job and my kids were still in school. And, you know, it kind of just didn't work out the way I thought it would. And so I started looking for my next thing. And through a couple of missteps, at one point I thought I'd be a life coach. And if anybody knows me out there, you probably are like, oh, thank God she didn't do that. And she's a little direct to be a life coach. And so what ended up happening, though, you ever have one of those days where you're like surfing the web and you don't know how you got somewhere? So I have no idea how I ended up in this space, but I found out about this event going on in California, and I live in Louisiana. And it was a marketing event about how do you build a business, right? How do you build a business online, which was something I knew absolutely nothing about at the time. This is 2009. And I thought this guy was kind of crazy. He wanted a lot of money for a ticket to that event. And so I told him no. And then what started happening was, back then I didn't know about CRMs. I didn't know about mass email, any of that. So I really thought he was emailing me personally. And he kept emailing and asking me to come to the event. And the ticket price kept going up and up and up because I was missing all the cutoffs, right? And finally, after about a month of good emails, by the way, he was brilliant. I paid $2,000 for a ticket to go to that event. And so I show up in California, and Patty, you and I know Adam very well at this point. Adam Urbanski it was his event. It was a marketing event. And I sat there in that audience. I'm like, oh, I could finish his sentences except for the online part. I knew how to build the business except for the online part. And so I walked up to him on day 2 and said, if I hire you, can you teach me to do what you do? And that was November of 2009. And I hired him to be my coach. And I started my business in January 2010. So I am getting ready to have my 10th anniversary in a couple of months. Super excited about that. But what's interesting is that in January of 2010, Adam and I sat down and we mapped out what this business was going to look like. And here I am 10 years later, it looks nothing like that, what we mapped out. But if we hadn't done that, I don't think that I would have hit the ground running in the way that I did. I took off running towards those goals, and kind of like the yellow brick road, stuff would lay out in front of me, and sometimes I'd take a misstep and I'd have to get back on the road, and it was crazy. It's been an amazing 10-year run. And at the same time, you know, it's like if I had been so sure that it had to be that way, I would have been in trouble. The only thing I knew was that I had to do whatever came up next. And I just had to keep going and keep doing. And so, yeah, you know, that's kind of along the way. I learned a lot about online marketing. I learned a lot about content marketing, which I think we're going to talk a lot about today, which excites me. You know, I built a very large coaching business. Very few people, you know, get up above $500,000 in their coaching business. And so it's been great and a lot of fun and crazy at times. And I kind of really like it. So, and I'm excited to be here with you.
Thank you. You know, I remember 2 specific things listening to you tell that story. One is that Adam Urbanski was my very first coach that I wrote a check for. And, you know, we could literally sit here and share stories about how much that has changed my life. And the people that are in my life right now that came from that are really amazing too. But one of the things that happened that I don't even know if you know, that literally was the biggest game changer for me, was the time that we were at an event. I think it was Kathy Alessandra's event, and me and you and Kadena and Katerina were sitting there at that event, and we were all talking, and you guys, I was just kind of sitting there, and you guys were all talking about this race to the million. And I was thinking, what is that? and you said, oh, it's this race to the million to see which one of us were going to make it to 7 figures first. And I remember thinking, wow, that was like I couldn't even see that right in my mind. And I remember just being quiet, which I don't do very often, but I was just sitting there going, I mean, it was mind boggling to me. And I remember later on telling Kadena, and Kadena's like, well, you should just be a part of it too. And I was like, well, I'm just the weak link. I remember saying that to her, that I felt like I would be the weak link. And I have to tell you, joining that little weekly club that we did, where we got on that call every week, changed everything. Listening to each one of you talk about that and what you were doing really made me realize that I already had all the pieces. I just wasn't seeing it for myself. And while none of us, I don't believe, made it to 7 figures that year, I did make it to 7 figures the following year. And I have to tell you, I don't think I ever would have if you guys wouldn't have seen it for me first before I saw it for myself. And sometimes I think hiring somebody or surrounding yourself with people that can see it before you can even see it is really important. And that's what made me realize how important it is to always have one coach or two. I've sometimes had 3, but having a coach and a mentor is amazing.
Yeah, that's a huge thing you're saying. I really hope that people are hearing that and seeing the point, because humans, we might have a tendency to hang out with people who don't necessarily have that size of a vision, or at least the big vision that we might have, right? And so really we can get held down. We do have to go, and like, it took a lot of guts for you to like join in and say, hey, I'm going to play with y'all when you didn't have that vision, right? So, right. I mean, that's what we got to do. We got to be willing to take those steps and take those actions and dare to dream and be around people who also can help us see, you know, that vision and that dream. So, yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes you say, okay, that's really great. I want to do it. Now you're seeing it for me. But then here's where we get down to business, right? Because then it's like, okay, that's really great to want it and then maybe see it. But the bottom line is your business in a place to do it? Like, because now you have to do action, right? Now is where action happens, right? And I had to take a look at my business and say, okay, you know, I was 6 figures, right? But the leap from 6 figures to 7 figures was a big leap, right? And I remember thinking, how am I going to even get there? Like, I actually didn't even have the infrastructure at that point to have even done it. I mean, I wasn't speaking then. That was when I was first thinking about putting my toe in the water and stuff, which was the biggest game changer, right? But I don't think I would have saw that for myself, except that I thought to myself, what you're doing right now is not going to get you there. So you're going to have to do something a little bit different. And what is that going to be? And I think a lot of times in business, it's like that, because I know with my clients, and I know I've been to your events, I've seen you do it live, where they don't see it. And when you see it from them, they just kind of look at you like, what? You know, you're saying I could do that? And sometimes we see it first for them. We want it first, sometimes before they even do, until they lean in and step in and say, I do want that. And then they're ready to do the work, because we know that, you know, they still have to do all the work, right? They just don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. You know, my clients call me 2 things. 1, they call me the results lady, and 2, they call me the truth teller, because what happens is a lot of people show up in my world to work with me and they'll say to me, I want to make $1 million. And I'm like, okay, well, you're billing yourself at $20 an hour. Do you know if it's even physically possible? Correct? They haven't taken that look at those numbers to understand, what do I have to do to attain that goal? I had a client that I've been working with that owns a TV station in Houston. And when we sat down and really mapped out the amount of money he was leaving on the table by not selling all the ad space he had available, he was blown away, because he hadn't stopped, looked at it, saw what the reality could be. He was just busy doing what he was doing, right? So yeah, we need to take that look sometimes also and change our infrastructure, just like you had to do.
Yeah, sometimes it's ugly taking that look, really, and thinking, ooh, but then what else can you do? Because I know, 8 years ago, if somebody would have said, when I first decided to become a speaker, if somebody would have said to me, Patty, 8 years from now, not only are you going to travel all over the world speaking, you're going to do this, and you're going to be helping people do that, and you're going to be putting on events and all this stuff, I would have been like, no, because at that point, I was still running into the bathroom every single time before I stepped on a stage and getting sick And that happened for 18 months before that went away. I just made the decision to do it and just kept on doing it. So I think that sometimes, the first thing is really, you have to make sure that you take a look at your business and you have to get into action, and then you have to make a decision. And I think for me, those are key things. What would your advice be to like a brand new entrepreneur or a business owner that really is going to take them from just being successful to having massive success in their business? What are some of the pillars that you think they need to do and look at?
Seems so massive and so overwhelming. I think there are a couple of things you got to really start with, though. And one is what we were just talking about, and that is that you have to sit down and say, okay, if this is going to be a real business, this is how I think I want to make money with it. And this is my goal. So if I want to do 6 figures this year and I'm selling, a $5,000 something, right? Then I need to do this many. If I need to sell 20 of them, then how many people do I need to speak to sell 20? Because guess what, guys? I don't know anyone who closes every sales conversation personally. I've never met them yet. So
exactly.
If you do, it's probably because you don't have the right price on your product. Just a little side note there. But so there are statistics, there are numbers, and there are things to focus on. What I may not be able to guarantee the 6 figures. What I can say is if I know that you can close 1 out of 10 conversations, I can tell you if you want 3 new clients this month, you better go have 30 conversations. You can control how many conversations you have. And so we really have to look at, what are those things that are important. The second thing being the taking action. So I was joking with somebody earlier today. We were actually kind of laughing about it because sometimes I meet entrepreneurs and they're going to get started and they're making their plan, and then they're going to plan their plan, and then they're going to think about their plan because they're not 100% sure. Just freaking go do it. Take the step, huh, Patty? I mean, like pick up the phone, go speak in front of an audience somewhere. I'm going to tell you, I am the biggest introvert you are ever going to meet. I'm telling you, extreme introvert. And I call myself a situational extrovert because I forced myself. I saw really early on that if I didn't get out and go speak and go put myself out in front of people, that this wasn't going to work, because I needed to, they got to find out who you are. And by the way, I'll just throw my little introvert friends out there a little bone. I don't show up at a networking event without a great extrovert as my wing person. So, if I know I've got to go do something where I'm not don't want to play there, I bring somebody who will play, and they just bring everybody to me. So there are ways around everything. Take the action, take the action, take the action.
I love that. I always like to say, when you go to people say, oh, I don't really like going to networking events and I'm kind of shy. I'm actually a slight introvert too. Nobody wants to believe that. I just know how to flip the switch when I need to. But when I go home after an event, I have to be alone for 2 days to refill after I'm out there doing it. But one of the things that I have learned is to do something that'll make people come to you. Now, this may seem a little weird, but one of the things that I have done, I've also done the thing that you're talking about. Having a great wingman is perfect because it's easier to talk about other people than yourself. But one of the things that I always say too is I always say, if you're a woman, especially, wear the coolest pair of shoes that you can handle, a nice necklace or something that's going to make people come up to you and be able to say, oh my gosh, I love that necklace, or oh, those are the cutest shoes. I can't even tell you how much money I've made from a conversation that started with, oh, those are the cutest shoes.
Yeah, that's why I make sure that I'm a speaker. I almost never have to go anywhere to network anymore that I'm not speaking, because, I do get asked a lot these days. But that, like you're saying, is whatever it takes for people to notice you. I need people to come to me. It's just a fact. And so I have to create that environment around me. And I do that by being the speaker or being a sponsor in an event, something where somebody's going to stand up and say, this is the most amazing woman in the world. You need to go talk to her. So, that helps me a lot to get noticed.
And then I think that one of the things that I've really noticed about you, so one of the things that when I very first met you as well, you and Michelle Schaefer, who we also have had on the podcast and also came out of Adam Urbanski's world, is the blogging challenge you guys used to do. And I remember I never did that blogging challenge then because but I remember I used to sign up for it every time and kind of go through the whole thing, but I never made it through. But I always loved hearing about it. And I have to tell you, you have been pretty consistent in creating content. And I love to say all the time, you create content, you curate content, and you repurpose content, right? And those are always the things. But let's talk a little bit about blogging. I think that is something that, Seth Godin says that podcasts are the new blog, but I don't think blogging is really going away. So let's talk a little bit. What would you say are let's start with people who don't think that they can blog very well, right? So what are some strategies you think you would use to improve your writing skills so that you can be writing awesome content? Because I think that there's some different ways to think about it that can make it easier.
I do too. I am just super committed to content marketing. And like you said, so sometimes that's content creation, sometimes that's content curation, right? Using other people's stuff to get seen, and not in a bad way, in a great way. But for me, blogging really just became kind of the way that I could create some content or get content onto my site that would get me attention. And that's really why I was doing it, right? So let's talk a little bit about maybe some easy ways you could create blogs. That's a great place for us to start, because that's probably the first. There are two things that people say to me. I don't know what I would write about, and I don't know how to do it. And so, I want to say to you guys that in the beginning, I didn't either. I'm not a writer. That's just not my thing. What I have been blessed to find out, I have right at 1,000 blog posts on my site right now over the last 10 years. And what I've been blessed to find out is that people aren't looking for perfection. Okay, you got to take that perfection and put it on the hook. They're looking to learn something. So if you can be educational in some form or fashion, then you're going to win at this little process. So in the beginning, I didn't write a whole lot. I would do things like I might go to YouTube and find a great video. Let's say that I wanted to write a blog post about LinkedIn, something on LinkedIn. So I'd go to YouTube and I'd find somebody who had this great tutorial on LinkedIn. I'd pull that video into my blog and I'd say, oh my gosh, look at this video that I found on YouTube. Patty Farmer created it. It's fantastic. This is why I think you need to watch it. I type those words in my blog and I insert the video and boom, I've got a blog post. And guess what? People love to watch videos, so they like my blog because it's got great content in it. Patty Farmer falls in love with me because now I'm out there promoting her, right? I mean, this is win-win-win, right? So I didn't really have to come up with the great knowledge of LinkedIn. I found the video. That was the hard work I did. So that's one. I have clients who do not like to write. And so I have them record their voice and do audio and then just have it transcribed and have somebody else write the blog post for them. I have some that do nothing but video. Look at, oh goodness, the wine guy, his name just went away from me. They got so famous doing all those video blogs, right? Blogging, I guess they call that. So don't let the fact that you don't like to write get in the way. You have information and you want to share that information. So either find someone else's great content and share it, or figure out a way to get that knowledge out of your head into those blog posts. This doesn't have to be difficult. I'm telling you, it does not need to be the hardest thing you do. It doesn't. The other thing is that when you so here I am 10 years down the road. So we've been blogging for 10 years. So one of the things that we're doing right now is we're putting out new content, but we're going back to all the old content and refurbishing it and saying, hey, okay, this is what I said 8 years ago about this, but here's the new stuff I want to add to it. And so then guess what? All of a sudden that blog that has some traction because it's been out there forever gets a fresh look. People are out there checking it out, and because we're reposting saying, hey, we updated this. I'm not having to spend a lot of time with a lot of content creation. So does that help, Patty?
I think that really does. I think when I was first learning and really making the decision to blog, one of the things my coach challenged me to do is, for those that know me, and this is my audience, so I'm sure most of them, I do this quote of the day every day, and I've been doing it. I think I looked the other day and I have like 3,200 of them, so I've been doing it for a while. And what she said was, Patty, you do this quote of the day every day. How do you pick them? And I say, oh, I just pick what resonates with me. Like a lot of times people think that I just think them all up ahead of time, but I don't. And so she said, oh, good. So here's what you're going to do. What you're going to do is you're going to create this video, and it's going to be like 2 minutes, and you're going to say, this is my quote of the day, and here's why I picked it, and tell us why. Like, how did that resonate with you? Why did that resonate with you? And once I did that, I put that in the blog, and I just literally did that. And it really took me like 10 minutes. It was super easy. And I was already doing the work of picking out the quote of the day. It was kind of, I think it became, I called it the thought behind the blog, the quote of the day.
That's good. I've done like blog posts that are just crazy. There was one day I'm like, I saw 3 things on Twitter I really loved today. And I literally just copied those 3 things from Twitter, put them in that blog post, and said the 3 things I learned on Twitter. That was the title of the blog post. I mean, it's like, you know, we can blog about anything. So it's everywhere. It's out there. The content's there. We have the brain thought. We just need to do it.
Well, then let me ask you this question, because there's 2 questions that I think people really would want to know. The first question is, what's a strategy that have helped you to attract the readers to your blog? And then the second question, in case you incorporate them together, the second question are, what are some of the ways that people can make money from your blog? So how can you monetize that? You're doing the work. How do you monetize it?
Okay, fantastic. So let's talk first about attracting eyes to your blog post. For me, I utilize social media for that. That is, you know, that original thing back in 2010 that I realized right out the gate was the strategy, the ability that social media gives us to get out to the world. And so when we do a blog post, our goal, we have a template created and everything. Our goal is that over a 31-day period, that blog post gets posted 27 times, okay? So literally that means that on day 1, it's going to go to my Facebook personal page, and it's going to go to Twitter, and it's going to go to LinkedIn Business. And on day 3, it's going to go to my Facebook business page, and it's going to go to Twitter, and it's going to go to Snapchat. And we just have this like template, right, of exactly where it's going to go every day. It is not, get this real clear, it's not your audience's responsibility to come find you. It is your responsibility to put your blog post in front of your audience. So, absolutely. Yes. So that's where the difference between those of us who are having success with our blog and those that are just like, I don't ever get any traffic. It's because they're not putting their post out for people to find them. So I think that's probably one of the things that made the biggest difference for me, was that I knew that really early on. I realized how it was my responsibility to get it out there. And then what happens, obviously, is that when somebody sees a blog post they like, they click on it to read it, they see it on Facebook, they click on it, and guess what? It opens up on my website. And what do they see sitting next to that blog post? Maybe my freebie, so they get on my list, or my book that's for sale, or my product that's for sale. All of that sitting right there on that same page with that blog post. The blog post itself has some form of a call to action, right? And maybe that call to action is, hey, leave your idea here. Guess what? Hardly no one actually, I don't know how you're experiencing it, Patty, but we're not experiencing comments. We experience action. We experience clicks on links, but people don't like to comment on my blog for some reason.
I think that's across the board. That was actually going to be a question I was going to ask you, because I'm really noticing that people really aren't commenting so much anymore. I think people just like to read, and then, like you said, they take action.
Correct. So you have to have something in that blog post, in that last paragraph, always my call to action, to make them an offer, or learn more, or watch this video that I created on this same topic, or, you know, whatever that is. I tell people when I'm teaching blogging, I tell people to create a call to action list of like 5 to 8 calls to action. And it may be my book, it may be a webinar that I'm teaching, you know, I have them laid out. And so if I'm writing a blog post, I just kind of go, okay, wait, what call to action do I want to use today? Oh, great, I'm going to talk about my book. And then I kind of skew my blog a little bit to make sure that it leans towards the book. So when we come to the conversation of making money, number 1, traffic to the blog. The blog has something that has some form of an offer sometimes, not all the time, guys. Okay, you're not selling in every single blog, but guess what? When you open up the blog, you see something else for sale on the same page, or you see at the top of the page a link to the product and services page for, what those people are offering. The second thing that has started to happen to me, and it's probably about 3 years ago for the first time, is that people have now started reaching out to me asking if they can put their products and services in my blog post, if I will talk about their products and services. I had a couple of companies pay me to write reviews on their products and services. So I want you to notice I've been blogging for 10 years and that only started happening about 3 years ago for me. So that wasn't year 1 or year 4. That was year 7. Just really.
But you've been consistent though. And I think consistency is what's the key.
That's correct. I didn't come out the gate. Blogging wasn't a way for me to go straight to money in the beginning. That wasn't my thought process. It was a marketing tool. I know me as an introvert. I'd much prefer write a blog than go to the networking event down the road. So I figured out a really good system for making that work. And it works very well. We get lots of traffic, tons of traffic. So
I have a question about that, because here's one of the things that I've noticed. So for me, I have certain people that I love to retweet and share their stuff, right? And I have to say, like you and Michelle, like I read every single thing that I get. So like I'm on both of your lists and I read all your stuff. There's probably like 5 people that I would tell you that I actually read everything they send me, right? So it's good content. I really like it. And you write in a fashion that it's really easy. It's just really easy reading and I enjoy it. But one of the things that I think is interesting is one of the things that I have noticed is when people talk about call to action, everybody always thinks that means selling. And one of the things that I can only speak for myself, but whenever I read somebody's blog or when they have their content, I know that people have stuff on their website. That's great. I wouldn't be sharing something if I didn't think that they knew their stuff or that they had integrity. So I wouldn't in the first place. But I will say that I always look at the call to action when I'm sharing. So I have to say that when I see that they're talking about their book or their webinar and all those things that you said, oh, I just love that. And I always share them. I will say that when I do see people that sell, and that's their big thing, you see that a lot more when people are publishing stuff on LinkedIn and stuff like that. I don't choose to usually share those things when at the bottom of their thing, they're trying to sell something for $1,000 or whatever. That's not usually something that I do, but I will do, I know that that may be what's eventually going to happen if people decide to opt in, and that's okay. I just don't want people to think that that's what I'm doing all the time. And so I'm really careful about looking at call to action. So I would say, and I love what you said, have more than one call to action. There is a time and a place for different ones, and making sure and knowing who you're talking to and that it's congruent with the message of what you're writing about, but you don't have to try to hardcore sell in every single one.
correct. And so it's almost like you should earn the right to sell at the end of your blog post.
Absolutely.
Because I'm going to give you content. I mean, I'm going to teach you something in every single blog post. I promise you. That's my thing, is that I want everyone to be educated on how to make money and how to build their business and how to live the life they want to live. So, you look for the content. Are you providing something that's going to make a difference for them? And if you do, that call to action is going to be great for them. They won't, you can earn that right.
I love that. I really, really do. So from a blogging point of view, is there somebody who was a real influencer that you followed for advice, or that you really looked for, like you looked up to what they did and you thought, you know what, I really love what they did and I want that for myself too? Was there somebody who was an inspiration for you?
Oh, goodness. Well, so the first two people that pop in my head, and Michelle Schaefer, I met Michelle at Adam's event. So Michelle and Adam were actually the two names that popped into my head. Michelle more for the blogging side of it. Adam gave me the strategy behind it. But she is just, man, she is a phenomenal blogger. I don't put myself in the same sphere as her. And she just inspired me so much. And in those early days, and she was just a little bit ahead of me in the beginning. And that's really important to see. I mean, it's not like I didn't even know who Seth Godin was at that point. I didn't know who any of these people, I knew nothing about online people. And Michelle was just like me. right? I mean, she was just doing it.
And she was an introvert too. I mean, she's pretty introverted, although she's stepping out as well now. I mean, the last year has been kind of amazing. But but you two getting together to do that blog challenge, I mean, that was just like smart. And it has definitely paid off for you both, for sure.
Yeah, she had the blogging knowledge and I had the strategy. I mean, I am all about strategy. That's my thing.
Me too.
To look at it from a strategic standpoint and her be able to teach people. It's how I know so much about blogging today, because Michele taught so much in those early days. And actually, she would teach me, and so that I could go teach it, because she didn't want to we would do webinars together, and she didn't want to talk much. And so, I mean, I really did. I got to learn so much so early on that I have to tell you real quick, Patty, that it's so funny. So Michele and I actually I don't know if Michele did it. I did a blog challenge with, I think it was Connie Reagan Green or somebody, way back in the beginning of 2010. And it was awesome. And I learned, I was blogging every day like you do in a challenge and all this kind of stuff. And when it was over, I met all kind of people. I had traffic to my website and I got people to opt in. And when it was over, I wrote to her and said, when are you going to do it again? She said, oh my God, I'm not. It was a lot of work. I'm not going to do it anymore. And so I'm at a mastermind meeting with Adam, and he's like, oh, what have you been doing? I said, oh, I did this amazing blog challenge, but I'm so depressed. So they're not going to do it again. And he goes, I thought you were an entrepreneur.
I can so picture Adam saying that.
Yeah. So from that point, I had to figure out how to do a blog challenge. And I knew, I could turn on my computer back then and so about it where I was. And so, but the person I know who did know was Michele Shaver. So
that's great. I love that. So Michele, what would you say, I mean, we all have them, right? So what would you say was the biggest obstacle, blind spot, or roadblock that you had to overcome during your entrepreneurial journey?
I can tell you, I know it. It smacked me in the face. So I built very large family businesses, right? I spent my life in all these family businesses, and I was the operations person. I have a degree in accounting. I'm the numbers person. I'm the systems person. You bring me a client, a customer, I can keep them for life. I can keep them happy. I can nurture them. I can do all those things. But let me tell you what it didn't do. Sell them anything. And so I started this business, and that smacked me in the face pretty quickly. The first 12 months in this business, I think I did a total of about $12,000 in sales in 12 months. And remember, I'd sold a company 2 years before for like $9 million. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? This is crazy. I didn't want to speak to people. I was doing social media exclusively because I was not speaking anywhere yet. I was not networking anywhere. And Adam, poor Adam, he was on me like, you're going to network, you're going to speak. Nope, not going to do it, not going to do it. I was going to hide behind my computer because, man, it was tough to ask people for the money and to be able to sell. And I remember when I sold my first big client and my first big contract, and she paid me $16,000. And so the minute she signed the contract, I jumped in my car and I drove to my mom and dad's house. And my dad was backing out of his driveway, and I said, oh my God, he was always the person who sold. He was the salesperson who cut all those big contracts. And I said, I just never could understand how you could negotiate those contracts. I couldn't see myself being able to do that. And he goes, what are you talking about? I had to feed y'all. And I remember in that moment going, hold on. So I made sales this massive, awful mountain of a thing. And to my dad, it was just how he supported his family. And that was one of the biggest learning lessons right there was, okay, wait a minute. Where's this monster, right? That I thought I had to slay. And so that was the first big step. The second thing, Patty, was that I had to get out of my house. I had to go meet people. So yeah.
That's a tough one, I think, a lot of times too. And I think people do it with ideas too. I always like to say, you know what? You could have this great idea, but if it never leaves your living room, it's never going to make any money either, right? So I think that can be for that way too. I remember a conversation I had with Adam. I remember because he really made me mad, like really mad. And it was on a call. And we were talking about, for some reason, list building, right? And at that time, my list was over 100,000 people. And, so I built this list of engaged, because we all know that it's not about the number that's on your list. It's all about the engagement. And I said something about it. And I remember Adam saying to me, and what makes you think that you have the authority that you should be teaching people about list building? And I mean, he just said it to me, and I was floored because he said it in front of everybody, right? And here I was, this, introverted kind of like people didn't realize, right? And I said, I don't know, maybe because my list is over 100,000 people. I remember saying that really squeaky quiet. And after we got off that call, Adam called me up and he said, you have a list of over 100,000 people? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, why, what are you doing with it? Like, it's like, I'm serving, like I'm doing this. Yeah. It was so funny. And so then the next speaking engagement that I had, he said, you're going to sell them a course on teaching them how to build a list. I mean, if you've done it, you should be telling other people, do you have a process? What do you do? And we kind of did that. And I remember I was speaking in London and there were 156 people in the room. And they said that I could sell, but I could only sell up to $1,000. And so I created this list building course that I still sell today, mind you. And I got up there, and out of 156 people, 110 of them bought. And I got home and I called Adam up and I said, I just sold $110,000 and stuff. He's like, I know, why weren't you already doing that? And I remember being so mad at him, but I was so glad too, because sometimes, you may not like it when your coach slaps you, so to speak, right? But sometimes they say just what you need to hear. Like, why wasn't I already doing that? Because I think what people take for granted, and I'm sure you're going to say this too, and you see it all the time, is sometimes the thing that comes the easiest to you isn't always so easy for other people. It's the thing that people will pay money for.
Yes, absolutely. If I've learned anything, it's that. I'll tell you another really funny story. So Adam kept saying, and by the way, somebody needs to tell Adam we're talking about him all day today.
I'm going to, and as soon as we release this, I'm going to be like, I hope your ears are burning.
He was insistent that I was going to start speaking, right? And I just wasn't going to do it. And so it was the end of year one, and I get a phone call from a woman, and she says, hey, you don't know me, but I've been watching you on social media, and I'm the director of a networking event in Houston, and I would love for you to come be our lunch speaker. Will you do it? And so I just said yes as fast as I could, because what I do know about me is if I tell you I'm going to do something, I am going to do it. The second thing I know about me is if I thought about it, I might say no. So I said yes. So she says, okay, great. Well, I know you have a book. Why don't you come speak on it? Now, let me tell you, I had written this crazy book that Adam made me write like month one, which was god awful. And at the end of this first year, Adam kept saying to me, I've never met anyone who knows social media like you do. You should be teaching it. And I'm like, no, I'm not teaching it. I'm not doing it. I'm not a social media. That wasn't what I wanted to do. And so she says, you need to come, you just come talk about your book. And I said, wait a minute. I said, did you hear about my second book? And she said, well, no. And I said, yeah, it's called Take Action, Get Profits, 5 Steps to Massive Online Visibility. She said, that sounds fantastic. Come talk on that one. We set a date 3 weeks later for me to be in Houston to speak. I hang up the phone and I think, I better write the book. I made that. So that she would let me come talk about social media, which was something I really knew about. So.
I remember that book. I read that book. I do remember it. I love that. I was at this event where Grant Cardone said something that just made me laugh. And he was talking about his book and how he decided that he was going to write his book. And he went and locked himself in the bedroom and he told his wife that he wasn't coming out for the weekend until he had written that book. He wrote that book. It's literally sold God knows how many copies of it. And he said people would come up to him and they would say, oh, do you know that this is a semicolon, it should be this, or people would say something about it. And he had the best line. He said, I said it was a bestseller. Never did I say it was a best written. And I laughed so hard because I thought that was so funny. Because people get hung up on details. Nobody wants to hear that. All they want to know is, what can you teach me that I can apply and it's going to help me in my business?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what happens when people tell me about my blogging. I do get those messages. That shouldn't have been a comma. And it takes everything I have not to write back and say, well, did you have 5,000 people visit your blog last week? So,
I get people to do that with my magazine too. They want to point things out to me too in the magazine. And I'm thinking, why don't you just read all of my magazines just so that you can do that? Because I think that is really funny. So Michele, what do you love about your business today? I mean, now you have been through this whole journey and it has just come so far. And what do you love about it today? What's happening today that you're just loving?
Oh my goodness. I love that it's different, that I have so much control, yet at the same time, I have created it now in the way that affords me time to like play grandma when I want to play grandma with my.
I know. Being a grandma's fabulous, I know.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I'm going to tell you, when I started this business 10 years ago, I would never have fathomed that I would want to say that. I have been on stages all over this country, and I have worked with amazing people. And right now I'm working with several local clients who are trying to sell their companies, and that's fun and exciting. And people call me all the time to speak and do podcasts. And I love this. I love I just love entrepreneurs' hearts. Like, oh, that is just my thing. I love entrepreneurs all the way through as much as I love my grandbaby. And so for me, it is to get to share like this. And at the same time, tomorrow I'll be working with some of the most amazing clients, and they are kicking butt. And I got one of them that's company is in contract to sell right now, which, 3 years ago we sat down and said, okay, this is our plan. This is how we're going to do it. This is what we got to accomplish to get there. And we're here. And so, a lot of times in the beginning, Patty, it's so hard, right? It's like, oh God, I'm going to do this and this and this, and something might happen. I'm 10 years down the road, and I can see now that because I did that, this is happening. And because I had the courage to go speak at that first event, I spoke at Harvard year before last, right? And so, it's like, I'm sitting in the sweet spot in my business these days. It really is so sweet. I love it.
That is so great. And I'm so happy to hear that. So Michele, how can people connect with you?
Look me up on social media, any of the good ones that you want to do that. Michele Mere. And a lot of you guys might know me as my last name, which was Michele Scism, SCISM. So you'll see a lot of stuff all over the internet with that name on it. So I didn't want you guys to get confused. Be sure and go to my website, decisiveminds.com. Like I said, there is more information there about building a business than any one person should ever need to know. Those are always the best ways to get connected to me. And there's all kind of other ways, I'm sure, too. So.
And as if you didn't serve enough, you're always so generous with your knowledge and really have a great heart to share and serve, which I really, really love. You also came to the show with gifts, and I always just love that, right? It's kind of like bringing a bottle of wine to dinner, right? So you have a gift for the audience as well. Tell us about that.
One of the things that's so very important these days, and we've kind of been talking about it this whole time, is really the way you are seen online. And I get it. We've been talking about social media, but there's a lot of different places out on the web where you need to make sure that you have control over what's being shown about your business, said about your business. If you're a brick and mortar, this applies. But if you're coaching or selling services, this also applies. And that is looking at your Google listings and all of the sites that talk to Google that are so important. It's very interesting. I started doing a lot of work on this about a year and a half ago with some of my clients, and looking at, I don't know if you guys know this, but when Google, who, we'll talk about Google, but of course Yahoo, Bing, all the big search engines, when they're looking to refer someone to you, so whether they're choosing blog posts to send people to, or they're choosing a location when somebody is doing a search for something, they actually go out to all of these other sites. There's 80 plus sites, what they call aggregate sites, right? And those aggregate sites just gather your information. Well, what happens is that it becomes kind of crazy, because if one of those sites gets the wrong information and then one of the other sites takes that information and all of a sudden they've got the wrong information, it gets crazy because Google looks at these 80 sites and says, oh wait, Michelle's phone number on these 20 sites is this number, but why is it a different number on these 40 sites? Okay. And so what happens is Google ranks you lower because your information is not consistent everywhere. So I have this great tool on my website that I'm going to send you guys to, that you can just check out your listing, and it's going to look across all, I think it's 80 plus sites. And you just put in the name, you put in the information, it's important, put in the information that you want to be right on the internet. And it's going to look at all these sites and tell you where it's wrong. And then you can go out and work on that. You can contact me and we can help you with that, however you want that to be. But let me give you the link. It's decisiveminds.com/listing scan. Listing scan. And you'll see there, just go put in your information and it'll give you a report that shows you all those sites and what's wrong on those sites. This is extremely important, even if you're service-based. I want you to hear that, because a lot of times coaches and all those think, I don't need all of that to be right. You do. Trust me, especially if you're going to do any kind of content marketing like Patty and I have been talking about.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure that goes in the show notes as well. So we'll make sure we put the link there as well. So Michelle, now we come to the point of the show where I love doing what I like to call social karaoke. So that's my hashtag, social karaoke. And we do what I call open mic. And this is an opportunity for me to serve you. You were so gracious and generous with serving the audience. So here's my way of being able to make sure that we serve you too. So we're going to pass off the mic to you, open mic. And this way you can share if there's anything that you want to share. Maybe we didn't talk about it in our conversation. We shared a lot, but maybe we didn't talk about it. Maybe there's something that you want to say. Here's your opportunity to do that. So here's me handing the mic to you.
All right, fantastic. My goodness, my brain is running. So a couple things I want to cover actually. One is that earlier what I said to you was that when we blog, it is our responsibility to put that blog out. And so when it comes to consistency, if you guys follow me, if you watch what I'm doing, and my guess would be Patty's probably doing the same thing, most of my stuff is automated these days. And that there's absolutely nothing wrong with automation. You do need to be a real person sometimes. So that's not this conversation though. What I want you to know is that there is just no way that I can run my business, coach my clients, and play grandma and still be trying to remember to post 5 blogs over the next 24 hours. And so a couple of things that we do. Number one is we use a program called CoSchedule. And I want you guys to look for what is it that can help you. A long time ago, there was a different program we used. The name just went out of my head. I don't even think it's around anymore, so it's irrelevant. So look for the automation tools. CoSchedule is a program where what we did was we set up a template in CoSchedule, and we said on day 1, we want it to go to these 3 places, and on day 3, we wanted to go to those 4 places, and on day 6, we wanted to go to these 3. And so, we have these 27 times that our post is going to go out over a 31-day period. And it does all that for us. All we do is put the blog post in WordPress and push the CoSchedule button, and it automates the whole process. And so when it looks like, I'm sending out blog posts a couple times a day, I might really be babysitting. You just don't know. So I think that automation is an extremely, extremely, extremely important tool. I want you to hear that. The other thing is that I'm all about systems. And so, for me, anything I'm going to do that I'm going to do more than once, I'm going to look for the system for. So I really want you to pay attention to what is it in your business that you are having to repeat all the time. What is it in your business that you find maybe you stumble on? Oh man, here, Patty, this is a good one. I was working with a client on this last week. So I have a client that she would get into a sales conversation, and she would get to a point where it's time for her to tell them how they can work together. And she would go blank, like brain dead blank. Okay, what do I say to them? It's the whole fear of selling thing going on. And so what I had her do was I had her write a cheat sheet. And she just wrote what her offers were, not like massive words, like I sell this product, and this product, and they're this price, and this price. And that cheat sheet's for her. And she's not to cover all of them, but when she does have a conversation with someone and it's time for that offer, and she says to them, well, I do one-on-one coaching, for example, and it's this price. Number one, she remembered what the real price is. She didn't have to make it up in that spot. But number two, if they say and react to her and say, that's too expensive or that's too much, she's also got written on that page her downsell. Instead of just going, oh, okay, great, hope to talk to you some other time. And I'm going to tell you, that's what happens to most people. So,
I think it's important to talk about the downsell. I mean, because the reality really is everybody wants to talk about the upsell. And I think it's just as important to be talking about the downsell.
Yeah, exactly. So, and guess what? That's simply a system is all it is, right? All she did was write her cheat sheet, and that's her system. So I want you to look at, where do I stumble, or what am I repeating over and over and over and over and over, right? When I bring on new clients, for example, I've got a new client sheet system where they get all the information they need, and I get all the information I need, and I don't have to think every time about how it happens. I know exactly where it's filed in Dropbox. My assistant sends the link to them. They take care of their part. We take care of our part. It's done. So I think that
it frees you up to do other things. And not only that, but I always like to say, when you can automate certain things, that frees you up, that when you are on social media, for example, you can actually be social. Right now, that's the time where you're talking and engaging, and you're building community, and you're serving, because something like a blog with a link isn't something that you actually have to do in that moment of time. It can be automated.
Yep, that's it. I'm telling you. So,
I love that. So thank you so much, Michele, for being here on the show. I really, really appreciate you coming on here. And for the audience out there, if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And remember, sharing is caring. Make sure you go and grab Michele's gift. It's going to be a great one. Check out her blogs. You'll be hooked, like most of us. You will really, really love it. And we'll see you again on the next episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.